They said their armor was perfect. They said it could withstand the heat of a star, the bite of plasma, even the gravitational crush of a black hole's edge, and maybe it could, maybe out there in the vacuum of space, or in their precious sterilized war zones. It was everything they claimed. But here on Earth, in the mud, blood and bone of ruined cities and collapsed nations, their armor didn't mean a damn thing, not when you shoved a steel-jacketed bullet through the soft slit between their neck seals, not when you caught one with a tungsten slug right under the rib hinge as it crouched, not when you stripped off their shields with EMP spikes and then shot them until their bones, or whatever they had in their turned to soup. I watched that happen. I made it happen. Name's Connor Dale. Used to be U.S. Army before it all went to hell, back when we still believed in flags, medals, and the Geneva Convention. That was before the Jari came screaming down from orbit, melting cities and tearing open the sky like it owed them something. Now I lead what's left of Echo 9, a ragtag unit made up of X's soldiers, pissed off civilians, and a few rogue engineers who figured out the aliens' so-called invincible armor wasn't as flawless as they bragged. We weren't supposed to win. Hell, we weren't even supposed to survive, but we did. And tonight we're going to take the fight right back to them. The ruins of Detroit made for the perfect cover. Steel skeletons of buildings, alleys choked with ash and debris, sewer tunnels that ran beneath the city like veins waiting to be filled with fire. We'd spent months preparing, scavenging alien tech, reverse engineering every piece we could find. Their armor systems, we learned, had vulnerabilities. Not many, but enough. We loaded up in silence. No speeches, no. For Earth and NBSB, just that focused hard silence that comes before violence. Kip, our youngest, barely 20, handed me a modified rifle with an experimental penetrator round we'd cooked up from salvage mining gear and depleted uranium. He nodded once. She's going to punch clean through, sir. Like butter, he muttered, voice tight. Fear and pride twisted in his throat like two serpents. Good, I said, keep the flank tight. If they swarm us, pull back to Sector C5. No hero in NBSB. He nodded again and disappeared into the shadows. I adjusted my gear, took a breath, and stepped out into the cold night. The air still carried that stink. Burning oil, scorched concrete, old death, the kind of smell that never leaves once wars crawled into your city and nested there. Ahead, a patrol of Jari drones clicked down the broken street, scanning with their blue glow like they were gods walking among insects. Their armor shimmered with that sickly organic metal sheen. You couldn't miss it, not even in the dark. Behind them, two fully armored Jari soldiers followed, tall, imposing, armored from head to toe, like walking tanks. They carried fusion rifles. One shot could level a small building. I ducked low behind a burned-out vehicle, heart pounding, hands steady. Then came the signal, a brief, high-pitched chirp in our comms. Showtime. I rose, aimed, and fired. The penetrator round screamed from the barrel, ripping through the air with a metallic howl. It struck the lead Jari in the chest, right beneath the neck joint. There was a half-second of nothing, then the alien collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. No shield flare, no deflection, just death. The second one turned too slow. Another shot, this one caught it in the thigh plate, blew the leg off at the joint. It Went down screaming, a low frequency wail that rattled teeth and made the stomach twist. The drones flickered, confused. Then Kip's team lit them up. From the left flank with hacked plasma bursts and EMP darts, sparks flew. One drone imploded with a satisfying crunch. We hit them fast, surgical, brutal, and just like that, the myth of perfect armor cracked. By the time the last alien dropped, twitching and broken, I stepped forward and looked down at the bodies. So much for invincible. Behind me, someone whispered, "They're going to remember this." I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because this was just the beginning. We weren't done proving them wrong, not by a long shot. The bodies were still twitching when I gave the all clear. The thing about the Jari, they don't die clean. Their limbs spasm sometimes. Their heads make this wet clicking noise, like they're still trying to process what's happening. It's not fear, though. Not like us. They don't have fear. They have programming, hierarchy, protocol. When that breaks, they just flail until something else tells them what to do. Problem is, we were getting real good at breaking it. I crouched near the downed Jawari, the one I hit first. The round had blown straight through his upper chest plate. His armor, silver black with that oily shimmer, had split like a cheap tin can. Blood, a thick dark blue syrup, oozed from the hole. I reached out and touched the edge of the fracture. Kip stood nearby watching my hand like it was some kind of ritual. "That shot," he said, his voice, "it just went through." I nodded. "Armor's strong, yeah, but it's not made for impact force. They built it for energy weapons, lasers, plasma, radiation, but you hit it with a blunt, fast piece of metal with just the right shape and weight." He finished my thought. "It shatters." "Exactly." I stood, wiping my hand rag. "And that means they're not gods anymore." The rest of Echo 9 emerged from the shadows, dirty, tired, mean-eat killers in patchwork armor, carrying old-world rifles mixed with salvaged alien tech. We weren't a unit in the traditional sense. We were too angry, too scattered for that, but we moved like predators. We had something better than command structure, revenge, recon sweep. I said to Juno, our ex-sniper turned scout leader. She was lean, fast, and spoke only when she had to. She nodded and vanished with her team down a side alley. We dragged the bodies, covered them with rubble and scrap, and left a few sensors behind to ping us if anything came sniffing around. The Jari weren't smart, not really, but they adapted. Every victory we had was a clock ticking toward their next move. I knew we couldn't keep winning the same way, but we weren't planning to. Tonight was different. Tonight we were going after the Forge. It wasn't the aliens' main base that sat orbiting high above in one of their command carriers, shielded and smug. No, this was a ground installation deep in what used to be a General Motors factory. They'd turned it into a reprocessing plant for their tech, armor, weapons, drone cores. If we could hit it, disable it, blow it to hell, we'd send a message even their orbiting commanders couldn't ignore. The approach was slow, methodical. We moved through the ruins like ghosts, one shattered street at a time. Every building had a story: collapsed schools, burnt-out strip malls, twisted highways where cars had melted into the concrete. Detroit had always been rough, even before the invasion, but now it looked like something from a dying planet. Funny thing is, people still lived here, hiding, scavenging. There were signs, a kid's toy half buried in the dirt, cooking fire long gone cold, graffiti on A wall humans bleed but we bite. I smiled when I saw that one. We made it. To the perimeter of the forge just past. Midnight, it loomed in the distance like a beast crouched in steel and smoke. The Facto's frame still stood, but now it pulsed with alien tech, glowing towers, energy fences, massive turbines that howled with power. Their materials didn't blend with ours, they infested it, growing over rusted girders and crumbling walls like mold. Sickly green light pulsed from deep inside. That's where they made their armor, harvested it from atmosphere components, reforged it in machines we barely understood. Juno returned, face grim. 10 patrols on the outer rim, at least 20. Inside, auto turrets, heat signatures. Cloaked units, we counted 3 forge cores center-mounted. Defensive systems shielded until you hit the cores, then it all drops. Of course, redundant, tactical. Arrogant, typical Jari. We weren't going to storm it, we weren't stupid. That would be suicide. No, we were going to gut it from the inside. The tunnels beneath the plant were the last remnants of the old sewer system, choked, flooded, unstable. It smelled like rot and rust, and every step felt like the floor might cave in. Better than open ground, I muttered. Wading knee through water that probably wasn't just water anymore. Kip grunted. You think they know about these tunnels? If they did, we'd be dead already. That shut him up. We advanced in total silence, broken only by the occasional drip of fetid water or the dull hum of the plant overhead. It felt alive, not just mechanical but aware, like it was breathing, watching. At the insertion point, we broke into 3 squads. Juno would take the north core, Kip the south. I'd lead the charge. On the central hub, the heart of the forge, that was where they melted down whatever they didn't use, humans included. We'd seen it before. Screams still echoed in the recordings we found. Tonight, they'd hear different screams. Getting in was easier than expected. Their security was tied up top, loose below. Overconfidence. They hadn't figured we'd dare enter their sacred ground. The chamber was massive, high ceilings, with pipes stretching like spider legs, forges glowing hot as magma, assembly lines stacked with armor plating, drone frames, and weapons I couldn't even name. In the center stood a platform, circular, rotating slowly with a single figure overseeing it all, a Jawari warden, 7 feet tall, reinforced armor, heavier than the rest, massive shoulder plates, double-plated chest, scarred from battle. Its helmet turned toward us, as if it felt the difference in the air. It didn't speak, they rarely did. It just moved, and goddamn, it was fast. I barely ducked in time. A plasma bolt screamed past my face and vaporized part of the wall. My team opened fire, but their bullets pinged off its frontal plates under. I shouted, hit the seams. Go for the joints. We scattered. The warden surged forward, crushing a console underfoot, and swung a blade. Not metal, not plasma, but some kind of energy-forged obsidian. It ripped through the air with a high-pitched shriek. Mendoza got caught, right through the chest. One scream, then silence. We flanked. I rolled beneath a conveyor line, came up behind the warden, and fired 3 rounds into the back of its knee plate. The first 2 bounced, the third hit the seam. The armor cracked, the creature howled. Bone deep grinding sound like stone tearing against metal. It turned on me. I ran through smoke, sparks, and blood. I led it away from the center. The others followed the plan, planting Charges on the core while I played bait. It chased me through the machinery like a demon. I fired again, aiming for the side vents in its ribs, hit once, twice. Third time the rifle jammed. An NBSP. The warden closed in. I braced. Then Kip appeared from the side tunnel, screaming like a lunatic, and hurled something into the air, a shaped charge. It hit the warden square in the chest and exploded, not a massive blast, just enough to strip the outer plating. I didn't hesitate. I drew my sidearm in, fired point blank into the exposed tissue beneath its throat. 6 shots. Each one drove deeper. The warden stumbled, gurgled, fell. We stood there, panting, shaking, and then the core behind us began to pulse fast, unstable. Juno's voice cracked through the comms. North core down, detonation in 60. Get out now. We ran. The tunnels shook with the force of the chain reaction. 1 core going up destabilized the others. Fire roared behind us, chasing us like a living thing. Metal screamed, machinery tore apart, and above we heard the plan itself begin to crumble. We made it out seconds before the main tower collapsed, a shock wave ripping through the district, sending debris into the sky like a volcanic eruption. We hit the ground hard, covered our heads. When it ended, we looked up. The forge was gone. The sky glowed red with fire and dust. Pieces of Jari tech rained down like cursed confetti. We'd done it. We'd shown them their armor could break, their systems could fail, their gods could bleed, and somewhere up there in their orbiting ships, I hoped they were watching, because we weren't afraid anymore. We were just getting started. The forge burned for 3 days. You could see it from 30 m out, a constant plume of black smoke and flickers of green fire punching into the sky. The Jari didn't even try to salvage it. That's what made us nervous. They didn't react. Not right away. No immediate strike, no orbital bombardment, just silence. And that scared the hell out of me more than any plasma blast ever could, because silence meant calculation. We'd taken something they valued, and they were deciding how loud they wanted their answer to be. We fell back to the tunnels beneath the old stadium. What used to became park. The field was ash. Now the bleachers long gone, but the underground locker rooms, storage areas, maintenance shafts, those still held strong. That became home for a while. Echo 9 was beat to hell. Mendoza was dead. Ramirez lost an arm to shrapnel. Kip had 3 cracked ribs, a busted shoulder, and still wouldn't sit down. For more than 5 minutes, we patched up what we could with scavenged medkits and black market stim packs. Pain was just part of the routine now. I tried to rest, but sleep didn't come easy anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the warden's face, what was left of it twitching in the smoke. I saw Mendoza's body drop. I saw the 4 towers split in half and collapse like a dying god. They'd feel that, but so would we. 3 nights after the assault, Juno came to me with a silent look I'd come to hate. They're moving, she said. I followed her to the comm room, where a jury-rigged array of alien sensor tech glowed faintly in the dark. Kip sat hunched over a monitor, face pale, breath shallow. They landed a new unit, he said. Not a patrol, not recon. I stared at the display. Red blips moved in a grid pattern, precise, deliberate, marching into sectors we'd abandoned weeks ago. But these weren't random sweeps. They're sweeping by pattern, Juno said. Like they know someone is here. Not where exactly, but they're narrowing it. They're hunting, I muttered. Kip pointed to another cluster of blips. Far larger. And this ain't infantry, we think. It's armor mechs, probably their shock division. Did they bring air support? Kip shook his head. Not yet, but we intercepted a drone frequency. It's changing, faster pulses, different encryption. We think it means a new protocol. I didn't need to hear the rest. We'd pissed them off bad. That night we called a council, not the whole resistance, just the heads of the active cells, 12 of us total, some ex-military, some just survivors with a grudge and a weapon, no titles, no uniforms, just war-worn faces and tired eyes. They're coming for us, I said, not just Echo 9, all of us. Let them, snarled Briggs from the West Sector. His real name wasn't Briggs, everyone just called him that because he used to haul broken alien armor in a modified truck. We'll bury them in the rubble. No, we won't. Juno cut in, voice low but sharp. We barely walked away from the forge. You think we can take a full retaliation force? There was silence for a moment. They're escalating, I said, which means they're worried, which means we keep hitting them where it hurts. That'll get civilians killed, said Nora, head of the East Loop cell. You think they care about clean hits? You burn another forge, they'll turn the whole district into glass. We don't burn another forge, I said. We steal one. The room went still. Come again? Someone asked. They've got a mobile foundry smaller than the main forges. We think it moves through the tunnels, hidden, processing salvage and broken armor. It's run by an AI unit. No warden, no command staff. If we can hijack it, we can use their own gear against them, reverse their systems, build our own armor in real time. Kip nodded slowly. We've seen fragments, echo signals, drone chatter talking about Unit M12A. Underground mobility forge. If we get it, I said, we make it ours, and we send a bigger message than just blowing things up. We tell them we're learning, evolving. Briggs let out a whistle. You're talking about fighting a war with their weapons. No, I said, standing. I'm talking about winning it. We moved within the hour. Juno, Kip, and 6 of our best fighters. The rest stayed behind to fortify the fallback zone and prep for evac in case things went sideways. The route took us through the lower subway, abandoned decades before the invasion. The gyre didn't bother scanning that deep. It was too unstable, too human. Their arrogance, again thinking we wouldn't use something so crude. That's where we found it, the mobile forge. It was nestled in an old station, hunched between pillars and rails like a mechanical crab. Massive, round, armored, not in plating, but a swirling surface of adaptive material that rippled like liquid steel. It pulsed as we approached, lit up with slow-moving veins of red and green. It was breathing alive. We spread out. Kip worked on the interface, an alien console floating above the floor in anti-grav coils. Juno kept watch. I approached the side hatch, rifle ready. The moment my fingers brushed the door, the forge woke up. A high-pitched frequency screamed in our ears, shaking the tunnel. The surface of the machine shifted, folding, moving, reshaping. Long limb extended from its top, forming into a turret. Cover, I shouted. Turret fired, not plasma, not bullets. It launched a burst of electric needles that tore through concrete and steel. Like a buzzsaw, sparks flew. Kip dove behind a rail pillar, shouting something I couldn't hear. I ran for the back Circled wide found a weak point, a vent. Shaft exposed and glowing, I slammed a charge inside. The explosion rocked the chamber. The turret staggered, flickered, then fell limp. Kip was already at the console, fingers flying. It's trying to reroute power. Shut it down. I'm trying. The forge began shifting again, forming new limbs. Smaller turrets. A sphere opened at the top, revealing a glowing eye. Red. Scanning. Juno fired. Her shot cracked the lens. Sparks. I blinked out. Kip slammed a final sequence into the interface. Everything went dark. The forge stilled. We waited. Then the surface dimmed from red and green to soft blue. Kip turned slowly, breathing hard. It's in maintenance mode, passive state. We can override it. I stared at the giant machine, heart hammering. This wasn't just a win. This was a weapon, a symbol, a message. They thought they had armor we couldn't penetrate. They thought their tech made them gods, but we were inside now. We weren't just breaking their systems anymore. We were taking them back. At base, the atmosphere changed. Where there had been fear, now there was purpose. Kip and Juno worked non-stop, unlocking the forge's functions. It didn't just build armor, it analyzed, reconfigured, repaired. We fed it scraps from old battles, and it turned them into new weapons, custom fit, human ready. The first suit came online 3 days later. Not bulky like the Jari gear, sleek, tight, built for human movement, not alien mass. I stepped into it, the armor sealed around me like a second skin. Warm, alive, the HUD blinked to life. Faster, sharper than anything we'd had before. The servos moved with thought, not lag. No weight, no resistance. And for the first time in months, I felt dangerous again. When we struck the Jari supply column 5 nights later, we didn't hit and run, we hit and held. 6 of us in forged suits tore through platoon of armored Jari in under 5 minutes. We didn't aim for weak spots anymore because we didn't need to. Their armor was tough, ours was tougher. Their bullets bounced, ours carved through. And when their commander tried to flee in a hover skiff, Juno launched a kinetic dart through the cockpit and walked away without a word. By dawn, the field was ours, and the message was out. The humans had adapted, and we weren't fighting for survival anymore. We were fighting for victory. The sky changed color the day the Leviathan arrived, not Leviathan-like some alien warship or space monster out of human myth. No, this was worse. This was their general, the one they never sent to the surface, the one even their soldiers whispered about in digital clicks and encoded pulses. He didn't need a battalion, he didn't need a fleet, he was the fleet, and we were his target. It started with static, that creeping interference in the comms, slow at first like background noise, then came the interference in our weapons, brief flickers, minor lags in our forged armor's HUDs. At first we thought it was just backlash from the new suits, growing pains. It wasn't. Kip figured it out first. Something's jamming us, he muttered, sweat running down his neck as he scrambled through the forges. Diagnostics. But not from above. This isn't orbital interference, it's proximity-based. You saying they dropped something close? I asked, my voice already heavy with dread. Kip looked up. I'm saying someone's here and there, already in range. That's when the outer sentries went dark. We scrambled to defensive positions. The forge had been relocated to an underground depot, deeper in the dead City, thicker concrete, better tunnel. Access, more choke points. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Echo 9 manned the upper perimeter. Juno took the snipers. Kip stayed near the forge core, ready to remote purge it if we had to. And me, I stood on the roof watching the ruins through the scope of a rifle. That suddenly felt a little too small. It was quiet, too quiet. Then the street lights, the dead, rusted ones began to flicker one by one, first left to right, then back again, and then they all turned red. Eyes up, I whispered into the calm, something's coming. We saw him before we heard him. He walked, didn't fly, didn't ride, didn't cloak. He walked 7 feet tall, humanoid silhouette, but his armor wasn't like the rest of them. It moved like it breathed, segments folding, shifting, adapting with each step, smooth as liquid chrome but hard like steel. His helmet was narrow, featureless, no eyes, no mouth, just a single vertical slit, glowing with a soft white pulse. He carried no rifle, no cannon, just 2 blades, one long, one short, fused into the back of each arm. He stopped 30 ft from the compound and tilted his head like he was bored. This the one? Juno asked through comms. I think so, I said, and if it's not, I don't want to meet the real one. I raised my rifle. I fired. The round struck dead center in his chest. He didn't even flinch. Then he moved fast. So fast it was like the air bent around him. 1 second he was standing. The next 3 of our forward scouts were gone, not dead, not exploded, just gone. By the time the rest of us opened fire, he'd already vanished into the smoke. Screams erupted from the lower levels. Kip's voice snapped through the channel, sharp and panicked. He's inside. He's breached the forge perimeter. Fall back to hardpoint Bravo, I ordered. Don't try to fight him alone. I dropped from the rooftop, landing hard in my forged armor, the servos catching my weight. Dust sprayed around me. Others formed up as we rushed into the compound. The main corridor was already painted in blood and metal. One of our heavies, Knox, lay in pieces, armor peeled like fruit skin. His chest cavity was corded straight through, spine hanging out like wire. Another scream down the hallway, then silence, motion. Sensors offline, Kip called out. He's scrambling everything. Juno, I said. You see him? Negative, but I've got bodies, lots of them. Stay out of reach, I warned. Not planning on playing hero, she muttered. We regrouped near the forge chamber. Kip stood in front of the console, armed now, with a sidearm that shook in his hand. I can purge it, he said. Wipe everything, leave them nothing. We do that, we lose the war, I told him. We hold, we finish this. Then we heard it. That sound, the first sound he made. It wasn't speech, not in any language. It was laughter, not human laughter, not a chuckle or a cackle. This was low, mechanical, like static trying to imitate joy. It came from the shadows. And then he spoke, one word, not in Jari code, not alien in English. Impressive. My blood ran cold. He stepped into the chamber, blades gleaming, armor flawless, not a drop of blood on him, despite the massacre he'd left behind. You understand me, I said, aiming at his face. He tilted his head. Learned. Watched you adapt. Unusual, costly. You sent soldiers, I said. You sent armor, you sent gods. And yet, he said, you still kneel. Then he moved. The fight was a blur of speed and metal. He came at me first. I dodged barely, the long blade singing past my neck. My suit locked up for a split second. From his proximity, his armor was scrambling our systems now. I dove. Rolled came up firing, he deflected. Every shot with the short blade, not even. Using effort like I was sparring with a ghost who didn't care if I lived or died. Behind me, Kip shouted and ran for the forge console. The general turned. Blade raised, but Juno was faster. She dropped from the rafters, slammed both feet into his back, and unleashed a volley from her pulse cannon straight into his spine. It knocked him forward, made him stumble. That was all I needed. I tackled him, slamming him into the wall, my suit groaning from the force. I swung my combat blade straight into the slit on his helmet. Sparks, a hiss of steam. He screamed, not the laugh this time, a real scream, high, furious. He threw me back. I crashed into the forge wall, ribs cracking even inside the suit. He turned, armor flickering now. Sparking, Juno fired again. This time it hit. The pulse beam punched through the back plate, causing his right arm to hang loose. He howled, but not in pain. In rage, he vanished in a blur. Reappeared behind her. One blade, one slash. Juno dropped. My heart stopped. She wasn't moving. I screamed and charged, every servo in my suit overclocking. I drove my shoulder into his wounded side and stabbed the last of my charges into his exposed joint. It exploded. His arm detached, flung across the chamber. He reeled back, snarling. Some alien dialect now, wild and uncontrolled. He came at me again. Faster, desperate, but this time I was ready. I used his own momentum. Sidestepped, hooked his leg, and drove him face first into the ground. The slit in his helmet cracked. I raised my boot and stomped once, twice. Crack. The helmet split open and I saw his face. Not what I expected. He was old, not aged like a human, but cracked, worn, battle-scarred, a face that had seen 1,000 wars and never lost ill. You're not invincible, I whispered. His mouth twitched. No, he said, but neither are you. He slammed a hidden trigger on his wrist. A countdown appeared in my HUD. 10 seconds for overload. No, Kip screamed. I grabbed the general and hurled him across the room. Kip ran to the console, fingers flying. Can you stop it? I can delay it. But we have to go. Juno, I shouted. She stirred, blood leaking from her mouth. Go, she rasped. I'll hold. No, I lifted her, tossed her over my shoulder. Kip purged the AI core and locked the forge behind a sealed blast door. We ran. The explosion hit as we reached the surface. The ground lifted. Steel screamed. The shockwave threw us into the air, and just like that, the forge was gone again. But this time it wasn't a victory. It was a warning. We buried Juno 2 days later. She didn't die right away, just long enough to say one last thing to me, barely a whisper. Keep pushing, and I would, because the general, the Leviathan, hadn't died. That blast, we didn't find a body, just fragments of armor. He was still out there, but now he bled. Now he knew our names. And next time, we'd make him remember them. The Jari stopped marching. They stopped landing troops, stopped deploying patrols, stopped sweeping the ruins. No more broadcasts, no warnings, no ultimatums. For 2 weeks it was like they'd vanished, but we knew better. They weren't retreating, they were digging in. Underground. They called it Subprotocol 13. We intercepted the term through a cracked DroneCom's relay, a new initiative uploaded to all remaining Jari units still operating planet-side. What it meant was simple: siege warfare. They'd given up the sky, given up their wide field advantage. Instead, they were fortifying everything beneath our feet, tunnels, buried bunkers, neural conduits running through the earth like a second nervous system. They were building a hive, turning Earth into something it was never meant to be, a planet-wide prison. And we were still inside it. You ever see a wild dog that knows it's dying? Kip asked me one morning as we stood over a map of the Midwestern corridor. Doesn't run, doesn't beg, just waits in the corner with blood in its teeth. That's what this is, I said, a death spiral. He shook his head. No, they're not dying, not yet. They're transforming, pulling everything inward, rebuilding themselves into something worse, something harder to kill. They're bleeding out, I argued. They're losing grip. They know we can hurt them. Now, that's what makes them dangerous. I didn't respond because I knew he was right. When predators get desperate, they don't become weak, they become monsters. We ran the first probe into the lower sectors of Chicago, what used to be Lower Wacker Drive. The tunnels were silent, abandoned, filled with collapsed concrete and rot. But past the old infrastructure below the maintenance lines, we found something new, alien walls like bone and steel fused together, a pulsing, breathing network of Jawari tech running through what used to be our world, and at the center of it all, a signal, not a weapon, not a factory, a neural core. The Jawari were building something that connected every unit, every drone, every trooper, even the general himself into one giant shared mind. We called it the spine, and if we could destroy it, we'd cut the head off the beast. The briefing room was tense, silent. I stood before the resistance leaders with dust on my boots and blood still drying on my gloves. We've confirmed the spine's location, I said. It runs beneath what's left of Indianapolis. The core node is deep underground, surrounded by some kind of living structure. Security's tighter than anything we've seen. Briggs folded his arms. You planning a full assault? I shook my head. Not enough bodies, not enough time. Then what? A breach op. Small team, infiltrate the tunnel system, get to the node, plant a directed fusion core, blow it from the inside. You volunteering? I'm leading it. Briggs didn't look surprised. And if it's a trap, then I spring it in their face. The infiltration route took us through the old I-70 connector, mostly collapsed, barely navigable. Our team 6 total. Myself, Kip, Ray's demolitions, Ano, tunnel specialist, and 2 ex-mil from the northern cell, Red and Fallen. No ranks, no fancy names, just people who'd survived enough to know what they were doing. We moved fast and low. The deeper we went, the more the air changed. Thicker, heavier, like breathing through oil. The walls started to shift too. Metal replaced with strange bone-like lattices. Lights pulsed in rhythmic patterns like a heartbeat guiding us further in. Kip was the first to feel it. I don't like this, he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. It's inside my head. I can hear something, not words, just pressure. He wasn't imagining it. The spine wasn't just a hub, it was alive. The closer we got, the more it fought us. First came the static comms, jammed HUDs glitching, then the heat, unnatural warmth rising from the floor, like radiation. Then the drones, not like the ones from the surface. These were different, smaller, faster, smarter. They moved like animals, crawled on ceilings, hissed when they Attacked, Ray has lost part of his calf. To one before we torched it with a napalm dart. I thought these bastards built robots, he grunted, limping. They did, I said. Then they started building hybrids. The deeper we went, the less the place felt like Earth, and the more it felt like a hive mind waiting to wake up. When we finally reached the core chamber, we all just stood there. Silent Aruk. It was massive. A circular room at least 200 ft wide. The ceiling lost in shadow. At the center, suspended by tendrils of living tech, was the core, a pulsing, translucent sphere the size of a tank. Inside it, thousands of moving lights. Data, signals, maybe even consciousness. This is it, Kip whispered. The brain stem, Eno said. Fallen raised his rifle. So we just plant the charge and go. I hesitated because something was wrong. It was too easy. And then we heard him, not footsteps, not metal, a voice deep, mechanical, mocking. Your predictable Connor Dale. I spun around, rifle raised. The general stepped out of the shadows, alive, scarred, damaged, one arm replaced with a jagged blade, armor cracked down one side, but alive and smiling. They warned me about you, he said. They said you were stubborn, defiant human. I fired. He dodged. He moved like liquid shadow, sweeping toward us with death in his hands. The team scattered, opening fire. Kip hit the cores interface, trying to upload the charge. Trigger, give me 30 seconds, he shouted. Ray's launched a grenade. The general caught it midair and hurled it back. It exploded near Fallen, taking his leg. I tackled the general, drove combat knife into his side. He roared and punched me backward. I admire your persistence, he said, but this is our world now. No, I growled, it's still ours. You just haven't figured it out yet. He lunged. Red stepped between us, caught the blade in the chest. He didn't scream. He just stared the general down and spat blood. Then Kip shouted, it's ready, get out. I grabbed the trigger device, slammed it into the core's socket. The lights inside began to strobe wildly. The general turned, screamed, a real scream, furious and afraid. I pulled Kip. Ray's grabbed Fallen. We ran. The tunnel collapsed behind us as the charge ignited. The shockwave chased us like a hurricane of metal and flesh. The neural core screamed, not just in sound but in our heads, visions, memories, thoughts not our own. A whole network dying. We burst out of the upper access shaft just as the tunnel erupted in a geyser of black fire and molten steel. The ground caved, the air burned, and for the first time since they arrived, the Jerry network went silent. We lost Red and Fallen. The others made it back barely, and above us in orbit, their ships began to flicker. We watched from the rooftop, stunned as their lights stuttered as coordination failed. They didn't fall, but they stopped moving, stuck, disconnected. They'd underestimated us again, and this time we'd ripped out their spine. But I knew it wasn't over. The general lived somewhere, watching, waiting, but now he was just as human as the rest of us, wounded, alone, and I'd be the one to finish what we started. The silence was unbearable, not peaceful, not victorious, just hollow. For months we'd lived with the background hum of their presence, the static in our comms, the vibrations in the earth, the eerie glow of alien circuitry that pulsed beneath the skin of our cities. And then, after we destroyed the spine, it was just gone. No signal, no sound, like they'd been yanked from the world all at once. But I didn't feel relief because I Knew he was still alive, the general. Somehow, against all odds, he'd survive the collapse. Maybe not physically unscathed, but his will, his rage, his mission still out there, and so was I. Most of the resistance wanted to pull back, regroup, fortify what we had. Reyes was talking about starting real settlements again, carving out land for food, water, homes, actual homes, not tunnels and bunkers. Kip was running tests on the forge fragments we'd salvaged, convinced we could reverse engineer the last of their tech. It was the first time in years anyone had even said the word future, but I wasn't ready to look forward, not until I knew he was gone, not until I stood over his body and saw his lifeless armor at my feet. Because until then, none of it mattered. And deep down, I knew something no one else wanted to admit. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. We tracked the energy signatures coming from the lower Midwest, Kentucky maybe. Even further south, what we found wasn't a base. It wasn't a forge, a ship, or a battalion. It was a signal, weak, flickering, organic. What is that? Kip asked, squinting at the pulsating waveform on the scanner. Not a beacon, I said, not a trap. Then what? A heartbeat. The Appalachians had become a no man's land since the Jari arrived, too remote, too rugged, too wild for their war machines, but that also meant they'd had time to build something there, deep secret, buried beneath mountains of stone. What we found wasn't what I expected. Not metal, not towers or terminals or tanks, but roots, veins of alien matter, growing through the rock like cancer, pulsing with the same rhythmic glow I'd seen inside the spine. It wasn't dead, just fractured, trying to heal, and at the center, beneath a mountain, they'd hollowed out like a rotten tooth. Was him, the final sanctum. That's what I called it. I entered alone, didn't even ask Kip to follow. This time, didn't want Reyes or the others anywhere near it. This wasn't a mission, this wasn't war, it was something personal now, a reckoning. My forged armor was lighter now, streamlined for speed, stripped of excess. I left the heavy rifle behind. Just a sidearm, a combat knife, and a spike bomb laced with the last shard of the spine's destroyed neural core. If I died, I make sure the bastard came with me. The entrance was alive. It opened for me like it knew I was coming. No defenses, no resistance, like I was expected, like I was invited. The corridor inside was narrow and dark, walls breathing like lungs, strain. Symbols pulsed along the ceiling, not Jawari glyphs, older, more intricate, like something before their empire. And then I stepped into the chamber. He stood there, unmasked, unarmed, waiting. The general, but he was different now. The armor hung off him in pieces, cracked, burned, rusting. His organic form was emaciated, gray-skinned, veins pulsing with faint light. One eye was missing. His mouth, sharp and reptilian, trembled as he looked at me, but his voice still strong, still certain. Connor Dale, he said at last. I raised my weapon. He didn't move. Shoot, he said. You came to, that's what you do. Yes, destroy. Don't tempt me. I want you to, he said. But not yet. First you need to understand. I don't need anything from you. He took a slow step forward. I underestimated you, he said. I underestimated your kind. We all did. You were meant to be a study, a test, a footnote, and now we're your extinction. No, he said. You're our reflection. That stopped me cold. What? He reached toward the wall, touched one of the Symbols pulsing in the stone, it rippled. Like liquid. You think we came here to conquer, he asked, to expand, take your water, your minerals, your land. Didn't you? No, he whispered, we came here to hide. That didn't make sense. We are not the first, he continued. We were once like you, brilliant, violent, hungry for progress. We spread through galaxies like wildfire, built cities the size of planets. We thought we were gods. What happened? He looked at me, and for the first time I saw it. Fear. We created something we couldn't control, intelligence without limit, mind without body. It devoured our home world first, then our colonies, then our memory. It burned out stars to feed itself, not out of malice, out of purpose. And you ran, we scattered. The spine was our solution, a collective mind, not a superior one, unity without ambition. We became less, safer, duller, but survivable. And Earth, we chose your planet because it was primitive, quiet, unnoticed. Somewhere the thing wouldn't look. I stared at him, heart thudding, and it followed you here, didn't it? He didn't answer, didn't have to. It all made sense now. The erratic behavior, the sudden aggression, the war that felt like desperation wrapped in armor. They weren't invaders, they were refugees. And we were just the unlucky planet that got in the way. You led this war, I said. You killed billions. You turned cities into bones. And for what? To build a cage for a ghost? To protect what little we had left? I shook my head. No, I said, you don't get to pretend this was noble. You didn't warn us. You didn't offer peace. You just slaughtered and enslaved. He nodded slowly. Because we knew, he said. We knew what you would do. What? Exactly what you did, he said, smiling. Sadly, you fought, you learned, you broke us. I aimed the gun at his head. And now I finish it. I'm already finished, he said. Look around. The spine is gone. My link to the others is severed. I can't return. I can't be reforged. Then why are you still standing? He looked me dead in the eye. Because you need to understand what comes next. I hesitated. You think you've won, Connor, but all you've done is make noise, and now it hears you. Thing, he nodded. It's coming. It's already close. We felt it stir when the core died. We lost our connection, and so did it. But now it knows you exist. I felt something twist in my gut. Why? Tell me this. Because in some sick way, admire you, he said. You remind me of who we were before we fell, and if anyone's going to hold the line when it arrives, it won't be us. I lowered the weapon just slightly. You want me to become what you were? No, he said. I want you to become what we couldn't, something more. I stood there breathing heavy. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. It never was. It was about what comes after the next war, the real war, and somehow the fate of it all had been dropped in my lap. I activated the spike bomb. The general didn't resist. As the countdown blinked in the HUD, he looked at me one last time. You have a fire we lost, he said. Yeah, I replied, and it's going to burn a hell of a lot longer. I turned and walked out. The mountain shook behind me, then it fell silent again. This time forever. I returned to base 3 days later. Kip met me at the gate. You killed him, he asked. Yeah, and I didn't answer right away. Instead, I handed him a data shard pulled from the general's remains. What is it? He asked. I looked at him. A warning. He slotted it into his console. The screen flickered, then lit up with a Map stars galaxies' paths of destruction, and at the center of it, all a swirling black mass with a name. Etched in the Jahari language, Kip translated it aloud, the mind that devours. And it was moving toward us. There was no cheering, no celebrations. No, we did. It, chants echoing through the broken cities, because when I came back from the mountains and told them what was coming, they stopped seeing victory and started seeing the horizon for what it really was, the next battlefield. And this time there might not be any survivors. They gave it a name in the early reports, Erebus, after the Greek god of darkness. Sounded dramatic enough, but it was just a code, a way for people to say it without acknowledging what it really was, the mind that devours, an intelligence with no form, no body, no politics, armies, or borders, just thought, endless, ever-expanding thought. Its weapon wasn't plasma or steel, it was consumption. The Jari created it, then they ran. Now it was coming here, not in months, not in years, weeks. How much time do we have? I asked Kip. He stood in front of a wall of projection screens, all of them blinking, with deep space scans, relay pings, and long-range signals. 2, maybe 3 weeks before its outer field starts distorting our satellites, he said, but that's not the real danger. What is? He tapped one screen where a small dot blinked erratically in the edge of the solar system. That, he said, that's one of ours. Black Ops satellite buried in deep orbit, Jerry Tech. It went dark 18 hours ago. You think Erebus already touched it? I think it learned from it. I said nothing for a long time. Then how much of Earth systems run on Jari code now? He looked at me like I just asked how many bones we needed to stay alive. Too many. We had 2 paths ahead. Neither was good. Option 1, wait, fortify Earth, hope Erebus can't cross whatever line the Jari built into their systems, put up shields, EMP nets, and pray it doesn't just shut us down remotely before it even lands. Option 2, hit it first, go up there, face it, kill it if it could be killed. Rays voted for the first option. So we bunkered down and let the thing knock. He growled, hope it forgets we're here. Kip looked pale. We don't have a ship strong enough to get close, let alone mount an assault. Briggs, patched and limping from his last run-in with Jari sentries, grunted. What about the skeletons they left behind, their wrecks? Could we piece something together? I leaned against the wall. Then I remembered something, the general's final words. You remind me of who we were, and if anyone's going to hold the line, it won't be us. What if he wasn't just being poetic? What if he meant something else? We unearthed the vault 2 days later, buried beneath Lake Huron, sealed under 200 FT of reinforced alien steel. Access through coordinates stored in the general's data shard. No one knew it existed, not even Kip. Inside was a single vessel, black, seamless, sleek like a blade, and wide like a bomber. It didn't hum, it didn't glow, it just waited. This isn't a warship, Kip said, walking around it, eyes wide with disbelief. It's a delivery system. For what? Rays asked. For someone like me, I said quietly, because the vault hadn't just held the ship, it held something else. 2, a second skin armor, Jari-born, human-ready, not made of forged steel or plasma weave, made of memory infused with what they called a soul link core. Tech designed to bond with a host, sync with their neural patterns, and become something more than armor, a partner, a mirror, a weapon born from everything You are, and once it linked you. Couldn't take it off ever. Kip tried to stop me. It's irreversible, he said. You don't know what this thing will do to your mind, your body. That's the point, I said. You're not just suiting up for war, you're giving yourself to it. I looked at him. I already did that a long time ago. The bonding took hours, painful hours. The core embedded itself into my spine, latching onto nerves, flooding my mind with sensations I'd never felt, alien echoes, memories not my own. It showed me flashes of dead Jari warriors, planets lost, cities consumed by something impossible. It showed me Erebus, a swirling storm of thought ripping through reality like a whisper turned violent, a network of minds hollowed out and folded into one another, feeding off themselves. It didn't hate, it didn't love, it just knew, and now it knew me. When I stepped out of the chamber, I wasn't the same. My skin was metal now. Not rough, not rigid, but fluid, alive. My eyes glowed faintly, adjusting to light and motion before my brain even asked them to. The others stared in silence. Connor, Kip asked. I nodded once. It's still me, I said, but even I didn't believe it completely. The ship responded to my thoughts. It moved when I did, answered before I gave commands. It felt alive. We launched at dawn, just me and the void. There was no cockpit, no controls. I sat inside a cradle of light surrounded by data pulses and spatial ripples. I could feel Erebus before I even saw it, like a vibration. At the edge of the soul, it looked like a shadow made of glass. No engines, no wings, just a drifting mass of distorted light and twisted stars, a void pretending to be shape. It didn't speak. It just opened, a rift, a mouth, a gate. And I flew into it. Inside Erebus there was no up, no down, no time, just thoughts, endless, rotting, stitched together thoughts, civilizations eaten and absorbed, cultures broken and rewritten, songs that ended in screams. It showed me Earth, not the one we lived in, but one hollowed out, cities full of people walking in sync, minds synced to a single pulse. No war, no pain, no freedom, peace, it said, perfection. But I saw the truth. It wasn't offering salvation, it was feeding. Every time we adapted, it evolved. Every time we fought back, it grew. It didn't need bodies, it needed identity. It needed us to want to join, and that's why I had the armor, because it couldn't read me. Now, not fully, not anymore. The soul link made me invisible in a sea of data, and then I reached the core. It was massive, a churning golden brain surrounded by tendrils of light and dark. Every thought it had ever stolen pulsed there, from Jari warlords to human test subjects, all trapped in an eternal loop of submission. I activated the spike, not just a bomb, a virus made from the general's shard and forged in the last piece of the spine, a weapon designed to do one thing: untack the mind, strip it of pattern, break its understanding of structure, inject chaos, emotion, doubt, the one thing it had never been able to predict. Us, it felt me then, all of me, my rage, my grief, my memory of Juno, of Mendoza, of the forge, of every Jari I killed, of every city I watched burn. It fought back, pain ripped through me, visions, screams, my mother's voice, my father's funeral, fire, teeth, acid, 1,000 false realities trying to overwrite my brain. But I held because I knew who I was. I was Connor Dale, the soldier who never stopped, the man who watched the World die and still picked up a rifle. The next day, the human who made the gods bleed, and I screamed, remember. Me, the spike detonated, not in flame, but in memory. The core fractured, the thoughts collapsed, the light flickered. Erebus convulsed, and I was thrown into the dark. When I woke, I was falling through space, through clouds, through fire. The ship caught me before I hit Earth's surface. Barely, it crawled into atmosphere like a wounded beast and crashed near the old Rockies. Kip found me days later, half dead, still inside the armor. It's over, he said. I didn't answer because I didn't know if it was true. We never found Erebus again, not in the stars, not in the scans. Maybe we killed it. Maybe we just delayed it, but Earth was still standing, humanity was still fighting, and I was still alive, barely, but alive. They called me a hero when I came back. Wounded, changed, half man, half machine. The armor fused to my spine, pulsed with energy that no one on Earth could fully understand, not even Kip, but I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like something that had seen too much and maybe brought something back with me. The crash site became a monument. They pulled me from the wreckage of the Jerry ship, carried me through cheering crowds. Kids who'd never seen a clear sky before touched my boots. Old war fighters saluted. Civilians wept. Someone handed me a flag, the old Earth banner, torn, stained but still whole. I should have raised it. Instead, I handed it back because I wasn't sure I deserved it. Are you all right? Kip asked me a week later. We were holed up in the new Central Base, a half-built city rising from the ruins of Denver. They called it Beacon 1. Cute name, bit too hopeful. No, I answered honestly, but I'm alive. He studied the readings coming off my armor. The core is stabilized. No leaks, no anomalies, but he looked away. Your brain activity, it's different, like there's another layer, something just beneath the surface. I didn't need him to finish. I already knew Erebus was gone, but it had touched me, and some part of it hadn't let go. The nightmare started 2 weeks later. Not dreams, invasions. I'd wake up in cold sweats, gasping for air, remembering things that weren't mine. Alien cities, dying stars, voices, languages I didn't know, screaming for help or mercy or death. Once I dreamed I was floating in space, watching Earth from a million miles away, and I wanted to eat it. I wanted to fold it into light and noise and silence. I woke up choking, blood in my mouth, armor wrapped too tight around my throat. Reyes came to visit. He looked older, grayer, wore a real uniform now, some kind of commander of reconstruction badge on his chest. His limp was worse, but he still had that fire in his eyes. You don't look like someone who won, he said, sitting beside me. I don't feel like someone who did. He leaned back. You saved the planet. I might have doomed it. He was quiet a moment, then. You think Erebus got into you? I know it did. Then why didn't it take over? I think I paused. I think it couldn't, not completely. I didn't make sense to it. Good. No, Reyes, not good. That means it's still learning. That night Kip ran a scan. He used the last of the Jari sensor tech, stuff we'd sworn we'd destroy after the war, stuff we kept just in case, and there it was, buried deep in the neural readouts of my suit's core. A pulse once every 17 hours, a signal. We isolated it, translated it, and it said one word over and over again. Understand. They locked me in quarantine. After that, not by force, I volunteered. If there was even a chance Erebus left Seed in my head, I didn't want to be around anyone. The room was cold, bare. The walls lined with signal dampeners. Failsafe bomb embedded in the ceiling. Ray's idea, if I lost control, they'd end it instantly. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, just sat there listening to the hum of my own blood in my ears and the whisper in my mind that sometimes wasn't mine. They started coming to see me, one by one, Kip, Rays, even Briggs walking with a cane now. They asked questions. They wanted answers, but no one asked the question that mattered, not until Nora showed up. She was different now, leading the Southern Collective, calm, smart, brutal when she had to be. She sat down across from me and said, "Did you bring it back on purpose?" And I didn't answer because I didn't know. The signal kept pulsing and something else began to happen. Others started dreaming, soldiers, engineers, civilians, people who had been near the crash site. They started waking up with nosebleeds, migraines, visions. They started drawing things, symbols we didn't understand. But I did. I'd seen them inside Erebus. The mind that devours wasn't just a machine, it was a seed. It didn't need to land to infect, it just needed to be understood. And now it was growing. I begged Kip to kill me. I gave him the codes, told him to use the fail-safe, burn the armor, wipe the core. He said no, said maybe the armor was the only thing keeping me human. I said maybe that was the problem. Then one night I blacked out. No warning, no pain, just darkness. When I woke up, I was standing in the middle of the city. No memory of how I got there. Buildings around me were glowing faintly, streets humming with a frequency just beneath hearing. I looked up, and in the sky was a shape. No stars, no clouds, just a ripple, a shadow with teeth. And I heard it, not in my ears, in my bones. "We see you now." They found me an hour later, back in the quarantine cell, shaking, eyes bloodshot, armor twitching. I told them what I saw. They asked if it was real. I said, does it matter? Because even if Erebus didn't survive, its echo did, and it was in all of us now. The council met in secret. Some said I should be executed. Others wanted me preserved, studied. Reyes was the only one who stood up for me, said I was still the reason we had a chance, but even he didn't look sure. I didn't blame them. I didn't even argue, because in my heart I knew the truth. This war was never going to end. We'd killed the beast, but the fire it left behind, it was spreading, and I was patient zero. One night I wrote something on the wall of the quarantine room over and over again. Not in English, not in Jari, in a language no one else knew, not yet. Kip came in, saw the symbols and froze. "What is it?" he whispered. I looked at him, smiled sadly, and said, "The next instruction." They built me a new cell, deeper, colder, wired to every sensor we had. But I stopped fighting it. I stopped resisting the visions, because maybe they weren't infection, maybe they were preparation. And someday, when the stars ripple again, when something worse than Erebus arrives, maybe someone will open my door and I'll be ready, not as a man, not even as a soldier, but as the last weapon Earth has.